Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. I am Julie Riley, the social media manager here at StreamYard, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Live Stream Impact. This week, I have my good friend Marisa with us, and she's going to be talking about using StreamYard for teaching an online college course, and so kind of an interesting way of going about it. In the meantime, though, I want to remind you that if you are watching in the StreamYard community, to click that link in the description. That is so we can see who you are. If you leave us a comment, StreamYard and Facebook need that permission. We have some awesome things coming up in the community. The big one that we have coming up here in the month of April, and it's going to start on April 1st, is we are doing VEDA. So VEDA is Video Every Day in April. And with VEDA, we're going to be encouraging you to create content every single day. So for 30 days in April, 31, I can't remember, 30 or 31 days. I should have a calendar in front of me and know that. But we're going to be encouraging you to create content every day. We're going to have a daily thread where you can leave your link to your content that you created that day. At the end of each week, we're going to have some smaller giveaways. And at the end of the month, we are going to have some bigger prizes available that we're going to do. So every time you create a piece of content and leave it in the comments there, you are going to get entered into that drawing. And for those who create content every single day, you're going to get bonus entries. And all of that will be held within our StreamYard community. Here is the link for that. That is on Facebook. So if you type in if I could talk, if you type in the StreamYard community, you'll see one that says official with that. That is our community. So go there, and that's where all of the information and all of the posts to keep track of for VEDA will be held. So make sure you're doing that. With that, we also have some other cool announcements that we will be making later today. So stay tuned for those on all of our social channels. You'll see that. Some big things happening in April. So I'm really excited for that, to get that announcement out. With that, we should get to know our guest, Marisa. So I'm going to pull her up. Hello, Marisa.
Hi.
So Marisa has been working in marketing since she was 18 and fresh out of high school. She has been a web developer, a reputation manager for online reviews, a ghostwriting blogger, a copywriter, a social media manager, a digital ad strategist. That is a long list. She has taken 15 years of experience and started her website development agency, Captain Coder, and teaches digital marketing at Wichita State University. Holy moly, that's a lot.
It is. It's funny because when I don't think about it until I start saying it out loud or like typing it out for bios, and it's like, oh yeah, I've done a lot of things. I've been very lucky.
Yes, you have. But it's amazing because it's really each of those pieces led you to where you are now, led you to that teaching position that you wouldn't have had really, I think, if you'd have done just one of those smaller things.
I don't think a lot of the things that I do now, if I hadn't done some of those smaller things and learned digital marketing because I kind of had to, because as the world changed drastically, I graduated high school in 2005, and back then coding was tables and not a lot of CSS, and all of those things changes and the launch of Facebook and everything else that's happened, and people just assume because the internet, all of the internet.
Yes, it is amazing that, if you know one little piece, you must know it all.
Especially back in the early 2000s and 2010. So you just kind of had to learn because people were like, well, can you do this? And you're like, I'll figure it out. It's fine.
Yeah. Looks like we've got some other people who are using it in the classroom. So that's really awesome to see. Tell us in the comments how you are using StreamYard, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's for a hobby, business. How are you using StreamYard? Are you, marketer, or are you somebody that's selling your online clothes through an online boutique? Like, let us know. So I want to dive in and kind of get to know you a little bit more as far as really what made you decide to go down the path of coding and web development and digital marketing and kind of how you took that journey because you have an English degree, right?
I have two of those.
Two
Yes.
of
Yeah.
those. Okay.
Yeah.
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 So that's quite a transition from an English degree to coding.
So to be fair, I was coding. Well, okay, I was reading the written word before I was coding, but I have been coding since I was 13. So my older brother is a software programmer, although he's moved kind of beyond the actual day-to-day coding in his work. And so saw him code, thought, that looks like a lot of fun. I should learn how to do this because what does a 13-year-old need to do but assign themselves homework? That was the kind of kid I was. So I started learning how to build websites, and it just became a really fun challenge. Like, it's a puzzle to me, learning how to put those pieces together and making that work. And so I built GeoCities had at the time, if you guys remember Yahoo GeoCities,
Wow.
it had a kind of rudimentary one of the first drag and drop builders on the market. And I was able to reverse engineer. So I'd put some pieces on the screen and then I'd be able to see what code that produced. So that's really how I figured out how to code, was slowly and surely reverse engineering and then a lot of Googling. And that more or less paid for the 2 English degrees. I ended up working as a coder throughout my college experience, thinking that I was going to go on and get a PhD and then continue to teach in the English literature departments. And, life happens. And I found that one of my really big joys was telling stories and just communicating those things. And as marketing has turned into a storytelling game instead of buy and everything else that it used to be, like, it fit me better. Like, it was so nice. I remember the first time I was sitting in my office researching storytelling marketing because I was like, what is this? This is amazing. It was like my first big girl job that wasn't a coding job. It was a reputation manager was the title that we could come up with it, because it was social media and online reviews and content creation, like everything that kind of came into that. But yeah, so that's kind of where it started, and it just became something that was a hobby that I kind of did as a side hustle and turned that into my career, more or less, half on accident.
It's funny how that happens, how you kind of accidentally stumble into, careers. I hear a lot of entrepreneurs who will be like, well, I was an accidental entrepreneur. It kind of wasn't planned and I just fell into it.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, for me, a lot of it was nobody really knew what to do with me. By the time I moved away, I got my master's degree in Scotland because I was studying Scottish literature. So why not just go to the source?
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And I ended up living there for almost 4 years. And after moving back to the States, and I had a couple years development experience. I had a couple years in digital marketing. I had, nobody really knew what box to put me in. So I just applied for developer jobs because they made more money. And
I love the honesty.
Let's be fair. Developers make more than copywriters. And that was kind of the 2 places that I could fall in. And honestly, even at my previous agency, where the last place I worked, where I had a boss and an employer and everything else, and W-2 work, he didn't know what to do with me either, because I was a developer, but I was so much more than a developer. And I had so much more experience than that. And so I didn't really fit, and I got restless, as you can imagine, because just building websites, just fixing code every day, not having all of the other puzzle pieces that go into digital marketing or having any control of that, like, that's difficult, So that's kind of accidental entrepreneur. I had to create my own job.
No, I love it. So let's kind of dive into meat and, of the topic here. You began teaching recently, last semester?
Yes, last
Okay,
semester was
so
my
one
first
semester so
semester.
far. Digital marketing at Wichita State University. And with that, your class was an online only class,
Mhm.
or was it always intended to be an online only class, or was it meant to be in person and because of COVID it became online?
So I am actually one of the lucky few on campus this last semester because, so like every other university out there, thank you, Marissa, by the way. I need to get my eyes off the comments, but um, but yeah, so I was one of the lucky few who my classes were always online, and that's largely because the MBA program that Wichita State offers is an online only MBA. So you can do, and because my class is part of that, it's an elective for the MBA program, but undergraduates can enroll. So it's just an online only class. That's how they had it set up. So
Awesome.
they actually, when they had hoped to do more in-person classes in the fall semester, but of course COVID and everything else kind of changed all of that. And I remember I got an email from the department. They're like, "Oh, you didn't say what you were going to do with your room this semester." And I'm like, "I think you guys forgot I didn't have a room this semester." Like,
You're like, my room is my office in my house. I've
this
already
one,
done everything.
yeah, I know. So I mean, it was oh my goodness, starting work at any kind of place with COVID going on, that was a learning experience in and of itself. But thank goodness I knew my class was online last March before the world started to go weird. And for
That's one way to put it.
I mean, in the Midwest, we don't like saying COVID.
Yeah.
It's the stuff happening,
It's
whatever.
that thing.
Unprecedented times.
And for those of you who don't realize, so Marisa is not only somebody that I know through marketing and all this, she is a good friend. When I say Wichita State University, if you don't know, I am also in Wichita.
Mhm.
So she's about 15 minutes up the road from me. So we know each other personally here with the Midwest
yeah.
mentality.
Yes, exactly. And we do say ope a lot. That's real.
Yeah, not being from here originally, I've never picked that one up.
Oh my goodness. I don't think I knew I did it until I started seeing the memes and I'm like, oh, I do that.
Yeah.
But
So that's awesome though that you didn't have to like jump in and suddenly scramble and figure it out. You were already coming into it planned to be online.
yes. And the great thing too is I had a colleague who had taught this class the previous fall. So right now they only offered it once a year. We're exploring, we probably are going to offer it both fall and winter, spring semesters, whatever they call it here, next year. So, with that, it became really easy for me. Like it wasn't even a question that I would do it through Zoom or anything else, honestly, because it's a class on digital marketing. So when you're breaking down what you want to do, like it just made everything easier to know it was all going to be online and I didn't have to worry about switching that up at all.
Well, that makes a really good transition into this next point where you bring up Zoom is so you chose to use StreamYard to teach your class online and not Zoom like so many other instructors have been, our poor children all the way from kindergarten up through, PhD students were living on Zoom. So tell us more about how you set that up and how you were using StreamYard.
So honestly, it was really simple for me to, one, decide I was going to do Facebook Live. So my colleague and I had talked about how he had taught the class, and he had more or less, because it's an online only, you're not as expected to have an interactive component because people are working this into their schedules, this class. So he had done a bunch of podcasts, and I liked that idea, but I also wanted to have more engagement with the students than just me dumping a podcast style lecture into Blackboard would provide. And with StreamYard, I knew it would be really simple to set it up to do Facebook Live and to do that through a Facebook group. And even easier. So it was all private, they had to join the private group. And it would let them see tools because it's digital marketing. It would let them see tools that they could then go use. Like I talked very openly about the fact that I use StreamYard to go live because it helped me share my screen and it let them see slides. And the entire time as you guys know, if you use StreamYard at all, when I went to share my screen, I would left myself in a smaller box on the screen so they could still see my facial expressions. You guys can tell I talk with my hands a lot. This is literally where I gave lectures, so they saw all of my stuff behind me. Next semester, we're going to have a quiz of what's behind me just to see if they watch the videos.
If they're paying attention.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but it just made it easier. And then it was still, my personality was still involved, and, it felt more, it just felt more engaging that way. As you know, with Facebook Live, it can be super engaging. You just have to run it. And then, the other piece of that was I didn't want them to have to be on camera, because when you think about it, you talked about, people from kindergartners to PhD students were basically living on Zoom, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
Yes.
And we ran, so I did the first lecture, and it's like a 45-minute to an hour with questions, of my time. And then they had additional reading and worksheets, and not worksheets, but assignments throughout the week. But at the same time, so after the first lecture, I asked them, I said, would you guys rather do Zoom? And they came back and they're like, no, not at all. We don't want to be on camera. They're like, please, we love this format. It's just easy, and that's kind of where they were at.
No, I think that's awesome. And I like that you took the time to get the feedback from the students on what they were wanting. We have Albert here, who has asked, how were you handling the two-way dialogue with the students since they weren't on camera right there to talk back to you?
Sure. So with that, it really did rely on the comments and making sure that they were comfortable enough to ask questions in the comments and being engaged that way. As you guys know, when you're running StreamYard into a private group, they have to go give StreamYard permission. And so just like Julie did at the start of this, I had it in the live video post scheduler. What's that called? Thank you. Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Your description of the post.
Yeah. So I had that in the description, like StreamYard lets you do, but then I would also remind them, hey, you guys need to go give StreamYard permission so that I can see your name, because otherwise it's going to tell me Facebook user. And I would call them out if they asked a question, because I had 35 students in my class, and which was great. And I knew pretty much all of them after the first 2 or 3 weeks. I got to know them all pretty well. And I would make fun of them. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but Facebook user had this question, and so I'd remind them, because you can be a little bit better. And that worked really well, because then honestly, I felt like people felt like they could ask questions more easily. I found that people didn't like breaking and asking questions during the bulk of the lecture, because they were very aware that, this was going to be, I would download the video for use in Blackboard later. So the bulk of the lecture, we hardly had anybody ask questions, but I would get 20, 30 questions there at the end of class. And then we would spend 15, 20 more minutes going through all of those together. And so the comments really made that easy. And I had probably at least half the class there live, which was really good. For being an unscheduled class, having them there live was really important to me, to be able to have those questions asked and to be able to answer those questions too, because as you guys know, digital marketing is such a weird little thing where variables can change so quickly by the day, and you can hear a thing from someone over here and it can be completely inaccurate. And so you've got to, there were a lot of times the questions were either just, hey, can you clarify this point? Or it'd be totally off base, but hey, what about this? I heard this the other day. Is that true? So, it was really great to have the ability and even to showcase the comments if I wanted to, so that people could see the question that was being referred back that I was answering as well.
Yeah. So we have one other question that says, why not send out a StreamYard link? So Christian, as you know, is one of my coworkers, and he does a show every Saturday that is called Live Stream Reviews, and he allows people to join in on his stream and become a part of that. So have you thought about doing that option, giving them a link that then they could pop on screen with you?
Honestly, they didn't want that. And part of that is because
Yeah.
you have to think about the fact that you're in a class of 35 people. Um, it's uncomfortable enough for a lot of people to be on camera, and especially consider this was in October. So we were headed back into quarantines and winter, and a lot of, especially I think timing was a lot of reason why we didn't do that. They were so happy to not be on camera for once and to not have to worry about what they looked like and what they were wearing and things like that, that I really wanted to not make that a concern for them. And the other part of it too is there's a learning curve with that. So people that are already familiar with StreamYard would know how that worked. My class, that's not what we're trying to we're not teaching a lot of tools and tactics and things like that. So I would probably have spent, especially love them, but a couple of my students, you could tell they were not the most tech savvy. I probably would have spent more time answering questions on how to jump in to ask the question than just by doing those through the comments. So it saved me time and it saved them headaches.
Yeah. Well, and I think the biggest thing there is the being mindful that they were just done with being on camera, being on Zoom, being in that kind of situation. So for them, this was probably just a relief of a break of a class to go, you know what, I can show up to class, I can learn, I can take all my notes, I can ask the questions I need, and then I can walk away and I don't ever have to be seen that way. So I can see where that would be very useful.
Yeah, and I did a poll, because I wanted to do a live stream at the time that my students would actually be able to join, because that's kind of the point of live streaming. So I gave them 3 or 4 different times, a couple during the day, a couple in the evenings, and gave them the option to choose most popular one. Well, they tied with Sunday afternoon and Monday evenings, and because I'm the teacher, I got to choose Monday evenings. So, that was what was nice. That's how I had so many people there. I let them choose, okay, this time is going to work for us. So keeping, respective of the fact that they were Monday night, at 7:30 at night, most of these guys are MBA students who are working full-time jobs and doing their MBA. That was more than half my class. Mm-hmm. So being respected of the fact that they also they were tired. This was kind of the end of the day for a lot of us, and it just wasn't really in a need for them to be on camera either.
Yeah. I love what Marisa, I've got Marisa and Marissa.
I know, and we spell it the same.
I know. I love non-video calls, actually. It gives me a break from being on. And I think last year especially was the year to kind of really be mindful of that.
Oh, yeah. And that may totally change next semester when I teach this again next fall. We may do and give people the opportunity to jump in the lecture and do that link, but a lot's going to depend on whether or not the world goes back to more in person or whether we keep using Zoom in an ordered amount of time, so.
Yeah, and you may see that shift go where now suddenly they're going, okay, I haven't actually been on camera in a while.
Right.
I kind of do miss that conversation now. And so, but yeah, I agree that Zoom fatigue was real. I know just even in conversations, we had groups of friends that were getting together just so we could talk and hang out. And there was a point where I was just like, don't send me another invite for at least a week, 2 weeks. I don't want to talk to anybody. That it's kind of that where you're just over it.
Yes.
So I think this was really good.
Yeah, and it put a lot of the onus on me. I had to be on camera. I had to be the only person talking, and I was exhausted by the end of an hour. But at the same time, they got so much more out of it. So that's what mattered to me, was that the students were happy.
And we got Dana, and I love everybody and all your comments. We've had some good questions. So by all means, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. We would love to get them answered. So I do want to know, what did you find was your biggest success to teaching this way inside of a Facebook group, and having your students come in and watch these videos in there?
Honestly, I think it was the engagement, because the way that most online classes are run, and we're not talking about classes that should have been in person and were online, because of COVID,
Right.
but rather classes that are online only, like the engagement and the fact that students got to use technology and things that they needed to learn to use. Like I had, and of course we had a private Facebook group. And so I did have a couple students reach out and go, do I really, I shut down my Facebook, or I don't have Facebook. Like, do I really need to do that? And of course, I downloaded, because StreamYard made that so easy, I downloaded both the video and the audio only and threw that into Blackboard. And so that was available to anybody who, for whatever reason, couldn't make it to Facebook or didn't want to get into Facebook. But the hard reality is that even if you don't want to use Facebook personally, if you do any kind of digital marketing at all, you need to know how to use Facebook. And so it was great for students to be able to also, see how those tools that they could use and get ideas for their own marketing plans, their own businesses, because we had business owners in there, and even for their own assignments, and seeing how live streaming worked and how Facebook groups could work and things like that too. So it was that engagement that you're not going to get necessarily doing it any other way.
I love that. So did you get any pushback from your students on having to go be in a Facebook group versus just joining a Zoom link? Or did any kind of, if they did any speak up about it?
Just the one. And it wasn't about being in a Facebook group. It was just that he had to reactivate Facebook altogether.
Sorry.
And I was like, I don't care. Like, I do not care if you don't have any friends. I don't care if you use it for anything else. But for the purpose of being a digital marketer and for this class, you have to have an account. I have a client who we run ads. He has multiple pages because he has multiple businesses, and he needed to be able to answer his own messages because I didn't want to do it. Yeah, exactly. So, he has a Facebook account, but I think I am literally his only friend.
Well,
and he has no profile picture, but that's the thing. Like, it's a necessary evil. So I did have one complain, but for the most part, everybody was game. And I think they were just game because it's different. It's not a normal college experience to go have a MBA level lecture on a Facebook Live.
Yeah. So I love American English, what this guy says. I teach about 5 hours a day on Zoom and StreamYard. It's exhausting. That's a lot of hours teaching online.
It is a lot. And it's funny how, because I still do, obviously with being home-based now and a lot of my clients being remote, I do a lot still with StreamYard and Zoom and teaching. And it is exhausting in a totally different way than what you expect. Like, you don't expect to be tired after sitting.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's that when you're online, when you're on camera, you have to be present. You have to be there, and you have to be alert and in the conversation.
Yes.
And you can't just, zoom out into, kind of tune out the what's happening. You are turned on the entire time.
Even on Zoom calls where you're on mute and you're not even supposed to be talking, you are hyper aware that somebody can be looking at you,
Yes.
and that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I want to go fidget. And I'm like, I can't because I'm on screen.
Yeah.
I'm
going to answer, Larry, to answer your question real quick. If you are not an admin of that group, the answer is no. So you do have to be an admin in order to, because that's how you set up the link inside of StreamYard. So now going live directly on Facebook in some of those groups, depending on the group's permissions, you may be able to, but through StreamYard, you need to be an admin. So yeah, let's see. And then I'll answer real quick. I am using the Sony a6000 DSLR. So I'm not using a webcam, I'm using a DSLR. So let's see. So what suggestion do you have for other instructors who are considering teaching in this kind of format?
I think a little bit of it is going to require buy-in from your students, but beyond that, people are just so interested in doing it any other way than what they're used to. So the biggest thing that helped me was having my slides ready to go and having them on, because I have two screens. And so I had my slides ready to go on my second screen so I could still see myself and all the comments come in. There's
Yep.
almost no way I could do it otherwise. And then having a good quality webcam and even having some lighting if necessary, just depending. I have really good daylight, but of course 7:30 p.m. in October,
There's no daylight.
not any daylight then. And being able to be flexible, the biggest adjustment to Facebook Live is you can't call on somebody in the middle of the class and ask them what they think. It's harder to get people to like jump in, and you almost don't want them to. And especially with this particular class, it's an introduction. So a lot of people had almost no exposure to digital marketing. So it was a lot more lecture based, and that's why it worked, I think, a little bit better in this format to do that. But just changing it up too and making sure that it works for what your students are wanting them to do. And like we had somebody comment earlier about inviting them into the stream if that's something that's better for your class, just being flexible with that and knowing your students without knowing your students. One of the things that was really kind of a bummer to me with online teaching was because I really like speaking in person. And I'm actually going to go teach one of my colleagues' class here. And he was like, well, you can do Zoom or you can come in. I'm like, I'm in town. I'm going to come in. Like, I'm half vaccinated. It's fine. But, it's just one of those things where you do have to adjust a little bit. And I had done a lot of live video before that. And so that's something else I'd recommend. If you haven't done any like Facebook Live where you are talking to you don't know who, like do some of those first before you start teaching that way. Just because I'd done Facebook Lives for over 2 years, it was a lot easier to do that. And then for me, having slides, being utterly prepared and an outline, I am a winger. Like you can give me a topic and I can talk about it for 10 minutes. But in this case, I made sure that I was outlined to the nth degree. I had anything that I wanted to share on the screen was already pulled up and ready to go. And I would just have to switch tabs around so that they could see it. Kind of things like that made it a lot easier.
Yeah. I love that point about the additional screens, and NLTMW also has that same point, that having multiple screens can really help your whole setup. I even operate off of 2 screens just when we're doing this. So I can have my talking points and my questions over on one, and I'm not trying to flip between tabs. But when you start sharing slides, it will overtake your entire screen, and suddenly you can't see anything if you don't have a second. Now, there are some ways we actually have a link to a Learn with StreamYard episode that we did that will show you how to share the slides to where you can still see your comments on there. But it is a little bit more tricky of a setup versus just sharing your screen and having the other one on another tab. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And there will be a day too, like I can't do it with this current laptop, but I am dreaming of the day that I can have 3 screens because one, I'm a developer, so I just like all the screens. But 2, for live streaming stuff, that would make it really easy to switch back and forth between live examples and a slideshow too, because you can share all of those things much more easily.
No, I think that makes total sense. And of course, we have our new share video feature that will allow you to share even more options. So that's something that's really nice, and that doesn't overtake your entire screen. That pops inside of StreamYard. So that's such a useful tool there that you'll have to, try out and let us know what you think of that.
Yeah, actually, I do that now with some of my other live videos and upload video clips and things like that too. So it's nice because I'm starting to get ideas as I start to plan for changes. It's crazy because it's March 29th and I'm already planning for a class for next fall. But as I'm planning for changes, it helps me kind of see all of these things too.
Well, and I also love the tip you said about getting more comfortable on camera and getting more comfortable on live, because it is a trick, an art to putting up a camera and literally talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And, I remember you in the early days of going live, and you're like, yeah, I don't do that camera thing. And we're like, yeah, no, you are.
Yeah, no, I don't really do this camera thing either very well. You point a phone at me and I'm like, no, thank you. And now it's because I own my own business and I have to listen to the things I tell my clients. You have to put yourself out there and put yourself on camera. But, that's the thing that really makes it easy for teaching too, because I had that experience. It wasn't as weird to sit there and talk to myself and laugh at my own jokes and hoped that the students were laughing in their rooms with me. Like I didn't feel self-conscious about that at all
Right.
because it was just something I was used to.
And I will say a tip for people that I teach when I teach workshops and stuff, for those who are trying to get more comfortable doing that, go set up a Facebook group that is completely empty
Hmm.
and go live in there and talk about a topic and then turn it off. It's hard to do, but watch it back. And you'll learn so much about yourself. You'll learn so much about where you're looking at the camera, or were you looking at the screen, or were you looking at notes the whole time? So you can really see where you're making that eye contact and get more comfortable on camera and get better at it. So,
The number one thing, I remember talking to somebody about this not too long ago, but having somebody else edit your videos and doing the transcriptions. But I actually think it's good if you have the extra time, the little bit of time that it takes to edit your own video
mhm,
and like I use rev.com's their automated transcription. So they let me watch it back and fix any
right.
mistakes. But I catch so much more of what I do wrong and the fact that I apparently say now all of the time. And working on that, when some people say like and as and
Mine was so. I
yeah,
used to say, and I still catch myself, but I've gotten better at it. That so was my keyword.
I've gotten to the point now where I edit it out. Like if I say now, break, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna edit that now out, like, because it drives me nuts. But it's good because I think it does. It helps you
Mhm.
learn so much better what you do well and what you do wrong, and even just going live onto your profile with
Right.
your friends and family, letting them be part of it too can help. I get
Exactly.
some of those nerves.
And the more you become aware of these little triggers, the more you'll catch yourself doing it. And then you'll start to slow down on how much you're doing it as well.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh
I
yeah.
love that. Where is it? So, American English with this guy said, sharing a video clip is great for bathroom breaks. That's a great way to get, off screen real quick and get right back.
It
That's
is
hilarious.
so true. Just make sure your bathroom's far enough away they can't hear the toilet flushing on the
Yeah.
mic after you come back.
Or make sure you mute your mic.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So, Larry, you will have an opportunity to win this mug at the end of our stream. So stay tuned. We are doing a giveaway of that. So, see, I just said it. I I catch myself. I hear it. But yeah. And then the Dennis Ball show said mine was oh man. Yeah, and you will catch yourself and hear yourself saying those triggers all the time.
Oh yeah.
Um, I love this. So right now, some of my students are using StreamYard for their oral production. And
That's
I do want to bring up a question that came in earlier that we were on another topic. And so if I can find it, basically the question was asked, yeah, here it is. Will you be using StreamYard to have your students give their final presentations? So for them to actually make their own stream.
See, that's a good question, and that might change a little bit. Everything that I did last semester was written. As I mentioned, I am an English major, so I feel like essays are really good to see if people understand things. But
I
I
love that.
have decided I don't necessarily like grading a lot of writing. And B, it didn't really work quite the way I was thinking it would work. So we basically built a marketing plan for a fictional or real business throughout the semester. That was their assignment. And each week that we added a new digital marketing topic, they added that skill set to their marketing plan and discussed how that would adjust. So having a more formal presentation at the end might be a great way to do that,
Mhm.
actually, Marissa. And I
Have them
love that
write it
idea.
out and then do
Yeah.
a presentation
And
of their
then
marketing plan just as if they were having to present it
to a
to
client.
a client or a
Yeah.
boss or a board of directors,
Yeah.
whatever their business is. Yeah.
We have to have a final grade, like a final exam, so it'd be a little different, but I kind of like that idea of changing some things up. Technically, I kind of have carte blanche because I'm digital, so they let me do that.
You're like,
um,
oh, that we'll let that one go because it makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So, but at the same time, like one of my colleagues, when I'm going in to teach his class, well, talk with his class this week. He was running his class like an agency this semester, and everybody assigned themselves jobs within the agency, and they're all working together on a single client and building up a marketing plan together. So, I
That's
mean,
awesome.
that's a great thing about marketing classes is that we're allowed to be a little bit different and to do something a little different too.
Yeah. So, so we said, what other suggestions do you have? What was the biggest feedback that you received from the students in this format? Was it the getting to not be on camera? Was it, kind of where was that feedback at the end of the course? Because I'm assuming you guys do a feedback
So
survey.
I'm not actually, the university made that they did
Oh,
not share with
okay.
me, but apparently it's highly unusual. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I'm just tickled pink. It's highly unusual that so many students continuously email the professor after class is over, because I
Oh,
still talk to a couple of them here and there. And I actually got about 10 different thank you emails. So a third of the class sent me an email at the end of the semester telling me thank you for the class and how, and a lot of them said the same two or three things. They appreciated not being on camera, but more than that, they appreciated the energy in class. They felt like the energy was just different for an online class. And so a lot of them really enjoyed and felt like they got more out of it, I think, than
that's
what they
awesome.
would have expected. And that's pretty awesome, especially since it was my first semester teaching and teach. And I, of course, like anybody else would be, I was nervous. Like teaching at college had actually been my original career trajectory. So to be back just in a different department is hilarious to me. Um, but that was what everybody had said too. And I think largely because they were in a Facebook group. So here's the other problem with online courses is you don't get to know everybody else in your class, and we're already all feeling so incredibly isolated because we can't go anywhere. We can't see anybody. And so at the beginning of class, one of their assignments that they weren't graded on, they didn't know that at the time, but one of their assignments was they had to go drop an introduction in the group and talk about themselves and why they were taking the class. They were not allowed to mention COVID. After the first couple did that, I was like, if you guys are only in here for digital marketing because of COVID, we're going to have some problems. Like,
Yeah.
give me a different answer because this was important 10 years ago, not just since March
Right.
2020.
Yeah.
You know,
This is
uh,
not new.
no, it's not. But so many people thought it was new. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, guys, Facebook has been around since 2005. Like we've had business pages since
Yeah,
2010. Like this is not a new thing.
exactly.
Um, but it was just great because everybody got to know each other a little bit better that way. We didn't quite have the engagement in the group. Like I was hoping people would talk, like ask questions in there midweek. We did have that, every once in a while, but it just was overall, and I was always quick with answers. Like if they dropped a question, like they were told, either email me the question that you have or drop it in the group. And I made sure I answered those questions pretty quickly. And I liked that they were in the group because then the whole class got to see that. And so I
Mhm.
think that actually helped a lot too. I wasn't answering the same question 10 times. Well, I mean, I'm a professor with a syllabus. I was still answering the same question 10 times. But if anybody of you guys know teaching, it's inevitable. But I was answering those questions a lot less. And if I was getting the same question, I was able to go drop that in the group and say, hey, I've had 2 or 3 people reach out about this. Here's the clarification.
Mhm.
And then we were able to have discussion. Just created this kind of nice little community that the group is actually still open now. We've had a couple of people drop questions this semester. Nothing too big, not a lot of movement since most
Right.
of them, it's their last semester of their MBA. But we've had some people asking questions, and I like that because I'm like, this is nice that we've got a little bit of a resource for you guys, just like you would in a normal college class, make friends. Like, this is the only way you're going to do that with an online only course. And that was the thing that I had a couple of people asking me, are you going to leave the group open?
I love that you did leave the group open and didn't close it, because that's one of the things is that, you've got all of your, when you take an online course, you've got all of your Blackboard discussions going on. If it's, they're only online. And then as soon as the class is done, that's gone. And there's
Right.
no more access to that group, to those questions, those answers. So you lose all of that. So I love that that stayed open and they can still access that resource if they want.
And they can still go back and look at live lectures if they have questions that are in the group now. Like, because I had a couple students, one that was an agency owner, and she was just really she's getting her MBA and really wanted to brush up on her digital side of things. And I had a couple other students that were already working in marketing or working for family businesses, or that had their own business and they were trying to be better with it. And it's kind of fun to see. A couple of them I see, because some of them were local, not everybody. But I see a couple of their businesses now on Instagram, on Facebook, and they're doing better. And I'm like, yes, this is awesome. It's just fun to see that.
I love that. We have a couple questions. So we have the first one, how large are your classes? And I think you said that earlier, but go ahead and repeat that.
So my class this last time was 34, I think. Okay. So not a huge class. Keep in mind the MBA program, I don't think has that many people enrolled at a time. So it was about half or a little bit more of MBA students, and about half they should have been seniors in marketing degrees.
And then we've got asking, how do you utilize the recording feature?
So I loved it because, one, the only way that I knew I could get in trouble if anybody went and complained to the university. I knew I would get in trouble if I didn't have them a way to get to it outside of Facebook.
Right.
So the nice thing was, and I asked them at the end of the first lecture, I said, okay, I'm going to download the audio and I'll have that available for you guys, just the audio in Blackboard, and I'll upload that. And I actually had a student go, actually, do you mind, could we have the video too? Like, I like the video. And of course me, and it's 7:30 on a Monday, I'm like, do you want to look at my face again? Like, but of course the slides were up there as well. So the nice thing was I had students that wanted both. So I would just download the video version, the audio version, and I would upload both to Blackboard, and they'd be there available in Blackboard in no time. They were always there by the end of Monday night. And so they had that available for the next week as they started working on their assignments. And so it made it so easy so that anybody who just wanted to listen and have more of a podcast type could download that file from Blackboard, or if they actually wanted to watch it and watch the slides or whatever else, they could watch it again. So I had both, and I probably couldn't have done this if I didn't have a way to really quickly download both of those after the fact, because I do have to make sure that anybody, for whatever reason, cannot have access to Facebook, they can get to it.
Awesome. Gabriel, was asking, are you able to share any of your classes? So like a link in the comments afterwards that they could access, or are those all proprietary?
Those are all WSU. Yeah. And anymore, they're not really, other than the private group, it's not really shareable. There wasn't a whole lot to see visually. It was just basically slides and me in the corner. So just like any other StreamYard where you're doing lectures, I didn't do anything too fancy with it.
Awesome. So we are coming up on the top of the hour. I'm going to ask you just a couple other fun questions here then. How does video, because you also have your web development agency, so how does video play a role into your long-term business goals?
So interesting enough that Gail asked, I actually plan on doing some teaching outside of the university system as well. I'm trying to figure out how to work that into my business model and teaching digital marketing to other web developers. So I'm working on building a digital course right now where I can help other developers like myself learn at least the basics of digital marketing so they can A, be a better developer, and B, make more money, because if you know these things, you can charge more for your websites. So I'll have a lot more video in my future with that. But then I do a Facebook Live every week, partially just to keep on top of it. I don't really care if there's anybody else watching it live with me. It's just one of those things where I know it's good for my practice and me to have. So I do that into a private Facebook group. And I talk about all kinds of things to do with websites and digital marketing. And then I download that file because StreamYard there again makes it so easy. And I upload that recording to YouTube. So I can use it in 2 or 3 different places, and I can cut it up for Instagram if I want. And so video, because of just the nature of any kind of agency and marketing business, it makes one recording that I can do in 10 minutes on StreamYard, so I can use it in multiple places.
Awesome. Okay, so if you could go back in time to when you first started with live video, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Take a chill pill.
I love that.
I mean, honestly, we are so concerned about what we are looking like, and whether or not we're looking at everything, like look at the camera that well, and it's hard to remember to look at the camera and not like, because for me, Julie's over here, and so it's hard, but at the same time, nobody really cares that much if you make a mistake, getting worried over tripping of your words, or it makes you feel human, I have found. So I kind of like it when I go watch a big webinar and it starts with, we're having a tech issue. Hold on. We'll figure that out. It's like, yes, they're real. It's not a recording. Like, this is not fake. And that's the thing I think for myself, just people just really don't care about things that you do the way that you do.
Oh, I know. That makes me think of a stream that we did on one of our Wednesday shows where I get on and I'm like, happy Tuesday. And everybody's like, it's Wednesday. And I was like, oh, happy Wednesday. Sure.
We had so many comments. So we're like, Julie, do you know what day it is? Like,
no, clearly I didn't.
No, we do not. Okay. We know that she's here. And we only do these on Wednesdays, but even I was really kind of confused as to what day it was at that point,
It was one of those, weeks, months, time periods where like you just lost track of what day it was.
I know. And it's funny because I had a memory come up, I think it was yesterday, from when Jen and I must have had our Twitter battle and had boxing gloves on. Like, I kind of miss doing that really silly stuff and just being in the moment and not caring what everybody else thought.
Yeah. So I think we should give away a StreamYard coffee mug.
I agree.
Let's see. So this is the coffee mug. I'm going to precariously balance this above my laptop because that's scary. So all you have to do to be entered is to post the hashtag #LoveStreamYard in the comments. And here in a minute, Marisa is going to be able to pick a winner. In the meantime, I want her to tell us, wrong one.
You can be on camera for it. I'm good. So one of the things that I really love about StreamYard, and I think what makes it my favorite tool altogether, is the ease of being able to use it for multiple purposes. Like we've talked about today, being able to use it to teach a college course and being able to give my students access to the files, audio and video, without any extra real work on my part, and having comments coming in so that we could still communicate in that Facebook Live functionality. But being able to use it for simple things like screen recordings and creating digital courses and creating content that I'm using on a weekly basis. Like, there is no end to how I use StreamYard, honestly, and the benefits that it provides and how easy it is with all of the different features and functionalities that it provides.
Awesome. I love that. So I'm going to put that banner back up for a minute so everybody can see what they need to post. Post hashtag #LoveStreamYard and you're entered to win the mug. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to talk again real quick about joining the Facebook community, which this is the link. So it is the StreamYard community on Facebook, where you can participate in our Veda promotion that we're doing, which is video every day in April. And we'll have lots more information coming out this week about that leading up to April 1st. But starting on April 1st, try to do a video piece of content every day. We're going to have a spot where you can post the link to your video. We're going to have weekly giveaways, and we're going to have some big grand prize giveaways at the end. And we'll talk about how you get entered into each of those and how you can get some bonus entries and all of that fun. So I'm going to let you randomly scroll through the comments and pick a winner.
Let's do the Dennis Ball show.
Okay, so Dennis Ball show, you are our winner of the StreamYard mug. I just need you to send an email to marketing@streamyard.com with your address, and we'll get that mailed out to you. So let's see, I do not have a banner with that. Let me create one for you real quick. That's part of the ease of it. Marketing. There you go. So marketing@streamyard.com. So why don't you tell everybody where they can learn a little bit more information about you?
Sure. So you can go to either my Facebook or Instagram. Captain Coder is my name. And I think on Facebook it's Capt Coder because, the joys of trying to find stuff. But I post a lot more on Instagram because I like it better. But that's where you can go and find more about me and more about what I do. And I share a little bit about teaching and stuff there as well.
Okay. And then your website is?
captcoder.com. Yep.
Okay. So there you go. So that's where you can learn more about Marisa and more about her coding and website development side of things. And then, of course, just all of the fun there. So we will have our next show is going to be, I believe we have a new show starting on Thursday morning that is going to be Ask StreamYard. And then Thursday evening, we will have the StreamYard Spotlight with Dana and Kelsey. This Friday is Coffee with the Ducks, where you get to meet one of the StreamYard employees and get to know them a little bit better. Saturday, we have the Christian and Letitia's show. I'm losing track of all the names. Live stream reviews. And then we'll be back to Town Hall on Sunday. And stay tuned to all of our social channels today, or at least one of our social channels, because we will have a big announcement later today. So you're not going to want to miss that. With that, thank you so much for all of that, Marisa. I hope that everybody really got some good information and some good ideas on a way to think outside the box. Let me get you that, Albert. To think outside the box on teaching, on getting outside of Zoom, and going about things a different way. So I really hope that helped everybody. And have a wonderful Monday and make good choices. Bye.
Such a mom.
It is.